Hi, it's Monday, August 15th, 2016. Monaco64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This morning I want to talk about the central bank takeover of Brazil. And I guess with the Olympics going on in Rio right now, it's an interesting subject. I was born in Brazil, actually, in 1964. So that was actually the year as well that there was a military coup in Brazil, and they overthrew a democratically elected president, Goulart. When you read through Wikipedia, the story is that he was left-wing, and the United States was scared that he was going to fall under the influence of Castro in Cuba. And so the military in Brazil, with the help of the United States, overthrew his government around in April time, 1964. So that's the story we're given, that he was a socialist. He was gonna, take over everything. Even though you read about the guy, João Goulart, he was actually a cattle rancher and had a plantation in the south of Brazil. So he wasn't, a poor guy. But that's beside the point. We're talking about the Central Bank of Brazil, which is called Banco Central do Brasil. So I looked into that central bank, and one thing that surprised me was that it was founded in 1964. December 31st, 1964. I looked at that about a year ago, and I thought, that's strange. You've had the military coup a few months before, and lo and behold, you've got a central bank being created on December 31st, 1964. Brazilians usually during that time, they party for New Year's, big celebrations, and then a few months later you got Carnival. So I guess their minds weren't on a central bank being created and what that meant. Prior to that, Brazil had a state bank, which is now like a commercial bank, called Banco do Brasil, that was founded by a Portuguese king who came to Brazil in 1808. Fleeing from Napoleon. So he set up the Portuguese court in Rio, and then he created this Banco do Brasil, which is actually was a government-owned at the time bank. So very interesting. Prior to 1964, Brazilian banknotes were issued by the Banco do Brasil, not the central bank, and it was as a government-owned bank. And the Central Bank of Brazil, if you read about it, it's autarkic, they call it in Portuguese, an autarkic institution, which basically means it's independent, completely independent of government. So, we're given the story, that it was a military coup. The communists were going to take over in Brazil. They had to save Brazil from communism. And then I've also looked at a paper by a Brazilian called Guilherme Binato Vilela Pedras. And he's written in English, actually. And he's from the Treasury, the Ministry of Finance in Brazil, actually. And it's a document. And it's the history of public debt in Brazil, 1964 to the present. Interesting, that 1964 date, isn't it? And the most shocking number that I see is that in 1964, the outstanding domestic debt of the government was 0.2% of GDP. Yeah, that's 0.2%. So basically, Brazil had no domestic debt in 1964. And he describes how it was a good thing for the debt markets that the central bank was created in 64 and then started operating in 65, and how the public debt market grew. That's what he's talking about. He's not having a go criticizing, he's saying it's a good thing. So by 1972, the outstanding debt to GDP ratio was 8.8%. So that's gone up quite a bit from 0.2%. So I wanted to know recently what the domestic debt in Brazil to GDP was. So, I had a look at some numbers, and the latest number I came up with for the GDP in Brazil was 5.9 trillion reais annual GDP. And in terms of debt, the latest number I came up with, and this is from the Ministry of Finance, the federal domestic debt in Brazil is 2.8 trillion reais. So that's, divide that by the 5.9 trillion GDP number, and you get 48% of GDP, the Brazilian government, federal debt. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. They've managed to go from 0.2% of GDP back in 1964, and now we're at 48% of GDP. And I'm not trying to say that Brazil would be much more prosperous and better place right now if we, hadn't gone into this debt-based system with the central bank. But I don't know, I have a feeling it wouldn't have been any worse than now, because supposedly the recession or depression Brazil is going through right now is the worst since 1901. So, yeah, I thought that would be interesting to cover that. That's the thing, with events. You need to follow the money. You can't just believe what people tell you. In Brazil, people always talked about that coup d'etat in 1964. It's a pretty important event. We had, I think it was 25 years of military dictatorship after that. And we had the central bank, things got worse in the 70s and 80s in Brazil. Even though, for example, my father was born in the 30s in Brazil, he always used to tell me, when I was younger, people used to say Brazil is the country of the future. And it always seems to be the country of the future. But just wanted to point out that maybe there was a financial coup in Brazil in 1964. Maybe we should look at it like that instead of a military coup aided by the CIA. And I'm not making that up. There's actually documents saying that, the U.S. Navy had, their fleet going up and down the coast of Brazil, and they're ready to help the military take over in Brazil in 1964, a democratically elected government. I wonder if we would have had the Banco Central de Brazil, or the central bank created at the end of 1964, if we hadn't had the coup d'etat, the military coup d'etat. So there you have it. Always follow the money. That's why, when I saw Brexit, I thought, yeah, it's what they're telling us about Brexit and everything. But follow the money, look at the fact what they've been able to do to the currency of the United Kingdom, where I live now. They've totally trashed it, from about 170 to the dollar about 20 months ago to now, below 130. So there you have it. I hope you're enjoying the Olympics. I think, yeah, there's a lot of wrong things. Brazilians, I think, don't organize things as well. There's a lot of mess and organization in Brazil, but it seems to be going quite smoothly. I watched the Olympic golf this weekend. I thought that was a beautiful golf course they built there for the Olympics. Anyway, there you have it. Central banking hijacking another nation, in this case Brazil, going from almost zero debt in 1964 to 48% of GDP debt right now. And that's just domestic debt. There's also external debt, which is a lot smaller actually in Brazil. So if you enjoyed my video and my analysis and the views I put through, please like, share, and subscribe. And you can also, if you'd like to donate, there's some links below on Patreon, PayPal, and you can donate Bitcoin as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.